Peace, beautiful beings. Welcome back to ABNC, Ascension Books and Conversations. The sun is sure shining today, so loving this lighting early in the morning. Y'all, I'm going to be honest. I cannot go live today at 10 a.m. So I made a whole video, 45-minute video last night for you that I was going to post at 10 this morning, and it was corrupted and deleted, even though, I'm going to start this tip from the top because it's Mercury retrograde is retrograding for me right now, y'all. Okay, so welcome back to Ascension Books and Conversations. It just told me that I just went live, so if I'm saying this again, just bear with me. I made a whole 45-minute video for y'all, last night. Going through these next 3 chapters, and the video was corrupted and deleted. So I'm here today with you, going live early, very short on time today because I have to go somewhere, but it's okay. We're still grooving, we're moving, we're getting past that. Unfortunately, me and technology are still working on our relationship, but we're here. So if you're able to join live, that would be awesome. I know it's early in the morning on a Sunday, but thank you for being here if you are. And if you're watching later on, thank you for watching and taking the time out of your day to take this time to not only let me read this story to you, but taking the time out for yourself to just reflect on spirituality. And if you resonate with any of this, please subscribe to the channel. And also liking the video really helps circulate the video so that it can reach those that it's really meant to reach today. So I'm just going to begin with a quick prayer because I need it. And I did not begin my session with a prayer like I usually do because I'm all over the place mentally, but I'm just going to say a quick prayer before we get started. Source, Most High, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to still come be alive today, to come live today. Please let this technology work well and go smoothly. And please let any messages that you believe are meant for those that are watching this video today to really receive any messages that are really in their highest good, in the highest good of all concerned in their situation. Please let me speak truth and with clarity, and please use me as a vessel to share anything else that you would like the collective to learn at this time. Thank you for connecting with me every day. Thank you for being here with me every day. And thank you for all of the enlightenment that you give, not only me, but everyone that is ready to receive what it is that they are meant to receive at the divine right timing. Thank you always for just everything that you do, seen and unseen. I give you all my love and all my gratitude always. In your name, through Christ I pray. Amen. Ache. So, all right. So we're going into the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. And as always, if this is your first time, I will always leave in the description box the previous chapters. The introduction video goes over the book itself and the author a little bit more if you want to learn about that. I definitely suggest you going back and rereading it for yourself. I also leave in the description box any resources or any I have the book there as well, so you can easily read it on your screen. But if you'd rather have, a handbook, I totally don't blame you. It's definitely nice to have it in hand. I just already had the PDF, so that's what I'll be using today. And you can follow along with me if you so resonate with doing so. So last week we were discussing how Elizabeth and Mary were in Egypt, and they were studying spiritual lessons, and those last few chapters were what those lessons contained. Very simple, but over the course of 3 years of their study, simplified into those chapters. And now we're moving forward into section 4. It's called Daleth, and it is the early childhood of the child and the childhood and early education of John the Harbinger, or as other people know him as John the Baptist. So these next few chapters are specific only to John and his childhood and how he was raised. So I'm excited to read these for you. I have some notes I have some notes that I took and I'll share those. But again, due to timing, I will try to be very quick with the reading and my explanations because sometimes I can be a little long-winded. All right. So beginning at chapter 13. Summary: Elizabeth and Engedi teaches her son. John becomes the pupil of Matheno, who reveals to him the meaning of sin and the law of forgiveness. Elizabeth was blessed. She spent her time with John and gave to him the lessons that Elihu and Salome had given her. And John delighted in the wildness of his home and in the lessons that he learned. Now in the hills were many caves. The cave of David was near, in which the hermit of Engedi lived. This hermit was Matheno, priest of Egypt, master from the temple of Saqqara. When John was 7 years of age, Matheno took him to the wilderness, and in the cave of David they abode. Matheno taught, and John was thrilled with what the master said, and day by day Matheno opened up to him the mysteries of life. John loved the wilderness. He loved his master and his simple fare. Their food was fruits and nuts, wild honey, and the carob bread. Matheno was an Israelite, and he attended all the Jewish feasts. When John was 9 years old, Matheno took him to a great feast in Jerusalem. The wicked Archelaus had been deposed and exiled to a distant land because of selfishness and cruelty, and John was not afraid. John was delighted with his visit to Jerusalem. Matheno told him all about the service of the Jews, the meaning of their rites. John could not understand how sin could be forgiven by killing animals and birds and burning them before the Lord. Matheno said, "The God of heaven and earth does not require sacrifice. This custom with its cruel rites was borrowed from the idol worshippers of other lands. No sin was ever blotted out by sacrifice of animal, of bird, or man. Sin is the rushing forth of man into fens of wickedness. If one would get away from sin, he must retrace his steps and find his way out of the fens of wickedness. Return and purify your hearts by love and righteousness, and you shall be forgiven. This is the burden of the message that the Harbinger shall bring to men." "What is forgiveness?" John inquired. Matheno said, "It is the paying up of debts. A man who wrongs another man can never be forgiven until he rights the wrong. The Vedas says that none can right the wrong but him who does the wrong." John said, "If this be true, where is the power to forgive except the power that rests in man himself? Can man forgive himself?" Matheno said, "The door is wide ajar. You see the way of man's return to right and the forgiveness of his sins." Chapter 13. So I really love this chapter. Reading it for the third time now. For a few reasons. We go back just a little bit to verse 15. Matheno shares that because due to the Old Testament, their customs in Jerusalem and for the Israelites was to sacrifice animals, specific animals, for specific sins, and also due to some of them in the past falling into the rites and rituals of other practices. Some of those practices also sacrifice man to their gods, and those are considered idol worshippers because they are sacrificing to somebody outside of God. And John also, at the time they were sacrificing to material things like statues and statues that were in the forms of animals or things like that. And John was confused by this. He was only 10 and he was just like, "Hey, like, I don't understand. How does killing this animal blot out my sins? Like, that doesn't even make sense." And honestly, I used to think the same thing. And for some time I was thinking, maybe at the time of believe it was Deuteronomy when those were introduced, the sacrificing of animals was introduced. I was always like, oh, well, is it because you don't actually want to murder this animal? So it would help you reject those sins more if you knew that this was the consequence of sinning. But then as a human, as humans developed, we realized that sin is just innate in us. And so we desensitize ourselves to a lot of things. And maybe after some time, they were desensitized to sacrificing the animals and they found a way to just live with it and learn how to, eat the animal and be with the animal and whatever. So John was confused. And in verse 15, Matheno says that sin is the rushing forth of man into fens of wickedness. And fens just means like a swamp or a marsh of wickedness. If one would get away from sin, he must retrace his steps and find his way out of the fens of wickedness. So you have to go back to where you were done the wrong, or where you felt the pain from something that you did. Something I also really enjoyed about this chapter was when John asked what forgiveness actually was, going down to verse 19 through 22. Um, John asks, and Matheno says that it is the paying up of debts. A man who wrongs another man cannot be forgiven until he rights the wrongs. And then he brought up the Vedas, and I left in the description box the Vedas, a little summary of what that is, because that is also bringing back Brahm, which we discussed in the last video. Those that were studying Brahm or believed in Brahma as the supreme, and the Vedas is the oldest text of Hinduism. The Vedas means knowledge, and it's one of the oldest and most important texts, spiritual texts, talking about just the way of life, how to live, and that again is a nice coexistence of those religious texts, because he also, Athena was a Egyptian priest, but also an Israelite. So they did, combine those customs a lot more often than they may. Now we're kind of getting back into that, resonating with the things that are true for us. But he not only was an Egyptian priest, but he would go to Jerusalem for these festivals. But going back to forgiveness, John then said, okay, does that mean that forgiveness, a man has to forgive himself? And Athena said, yes, you got it. You figured it out. Because if man, let's say, as Christians, we're taught by Jesus, who later in his ministry shared that we're supposed to forgive our brothers and sisters 70 times, 7 times, which just means infinitely. We forgive them, we keep forgiving them, even if they've done wrong again and again, we forgive them over and over again. And that has a lot to do with the self, right? That has a lot to do with letting go of control. We can't control the ways of others. We can't make decisions for other people. So that forgiveness really helps relieve a lot of that inability to control the situation. It also gives us a better viewpoint towards that person and being able to say, hey, this person did me wrong, but I'm willing to move past that in order for us to continue to build this relationship, or to at least maintain this relationship that we have now, or to even just still be respectful of each other and move past this one situation and being able to move forward in life. But the thing that I felt from this that is missing from a lot of people's perspective or practice in forgiveness is the forgiveness of the self when you do something wrong. And that's what John is really, and Athena are really emphasizing here, is that when somebody does something wrong, we all have a conscience. Now, some people's conscience are a lot louder than others, but we all have it. So we know intuitively when we do something that's not right for us or right towards somebody else, especially if it's affecting the willpower or the will of somebody else. And y'all like my nails? Sorry, I just got to show it. That's why I'm all over the place like this. This is not the norm. But distractions, it's too early for me. but pretty much, yeah. So if you're in a space, right, where you feel pain or shame or just anything that is low towards the self, to where you're holding on to your own wrongs, that even if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I forgive you for what you did," that doesn't mean that the sin that was done and the shame that came from doing the wrong has just disappeared. Not until you take the time to reflect on yourself and forgive yourself for doing that, and hopefully, doing better in the future, just learning the lesson and doing better in the future to not make that same mistake again. Just like if you were forgiving somebody, you hope that them saying sorry means that they are not going to try to do that again. And so it's not just about saying sorry, but it is about forgiving the self for even putting someone in that situation. And thus, according to Medino, then the sin is actually forgiven at that point in time. So I think that's really powerful. It attests to our own autonomy and self power that we have. We do have control over our lives and our emotions, and forgiving yourself can really help move forward in life, and not shame the self, not hold on to the things that we can't change. The past is now in the past, so all we can do is move forward. All right, so moving on. Chapter 14. Let me just get some coffee real quick. Feel free to go back. Please leave in the comments anything that comes to you. I would love to hear your own reflections and your own ideas of what this reading shares. Okay, so Chapter 14. Matheno's lessons, the doctrine of universal law, the power of man to choose and to attain, the benefits of antagonisms, ancient sacred books, the place of John and Jesus in the world's history. Matheno and his pupil John were talking of the sacred books of olden times and of the golden precepts they contained, and John exclaimed, "These golden precepts are sublime. What need have we of other sacred books?" Matheno said, "The spirits of the Holy One cause everything to come and go in proper time. The sun has his own time to set, the moon to rise, to wax and wane, the stars to come and go, the rain to fall, the winds to blow. The seed times and the harvest times to come, man to be born and man to die. These mighty spirits cause the nations to be born. They rock them in their cradles, nurture them to greatest power, and when their tasks are done, they wrap them in their winding sheets and lay them in their tombs. Events are many in a nation's life, and in the life of man, that are not pleasant for the time. But in the end, the truth appears. Whatever comes is for the best. Man was created for a noble part, but he could not be made a free man filled with wisdom, truth, and might if he were hedged about, confined in straits from which he could not pass. Then he would be a toy, a mere machine. Creative spirits gave to man a will, and so he has the power to choose. He may attain the greatest heights or sink to deepest depths. For what he wills to gain, he has the power to gain. If he desires strength, he has the power to gain that strength, but he must overcome resistances to reach the goal. No strength is ever gained in idleness. So, in the whirl of many-sided conflicts, man is placed where he must strive to extricate himself. In every conflict, man gains strength. With every conquest, he attains to greater heights. With every day, he finds new duties and new cares. Man is not carried over dangerous pits, nor helped to overcome his foes. He is himself his army, and his sword and shield, and he is captain of his hosts. The Holy Ones just light his way. Man never has been left without a beacon light to guide. And he has ever had a lighted lamp in hand that he may see the dangerous rocks, the turbid streams, and treacherous pits. And so the Holy Ones have judged. When men have needed added light, a master soul has come to earth to give the light. Before the Vedic days, the world had many sacred books to light the way. And when man needed greater light, the Vedas, the Avesta, and the books of Tao Great appeared to show the way to greater heights. And in the proper place, the Hebrew Bible, with its law, its prophets, and its psalms, appeared for man's enlightenment. But years have passed, and men have need of greater light. And now the day star from on high begins to shine. And Jesus is the flesh made messenger to show that light to men. And you, my pupil, you have been ordained to Harbinger the coming day. But you must keep that purity of heart you now possess. And you must light your lamp directly from the coals that burn upon the altar of the holy ones. And then your lamp will be transmuted to a boundless flame, and you will be a living torch whose light will shine wherever man abides. But in the ages yet to come, man will attain to greater heights, and lights still more intense will come. And then at last, a mighty master soul will come to earth to light the way up to the throne of perfect man. Chapter 14. So, this one's great. Again, will try not to be long-winded. So, he's bringing up the Vedas again. And if we go back to the beginning, verses 2 through 7, John is here studying. He's about 10 still, and he's studying these texts, and he's learning about the Vedas, and he's learning about all the Hebrew Bible, all these ancient laws and texts. And he says, "Oh, these books are so sublime. Like, why would we need any more?" And I think this is so great because this is something I believe that a lot of people fall into is believing that truth is only in one space. And the belief that other sacred texts are only pertinent to a certain religion, or a certain religious texts are only there for a certain time. And here he's explaining that everything does have its divine time. Everything does come at the time that it's supposed to. Knowledge, information, and that's why this book specifically for me was something I really wanted to share as well. Because when it came into my life, I was like, wow, this is so many missing pieces from my own Christian childhood. And to have that be a light is just a guidance, a direction, something to go towards. And in this, they also shared that we always have something guiding us. We always have a light to guide us. We're never alone. And although we're never alone, our guides, whatever you believe them to be, spirits, angels, whatever they are, they're there to guide and aid, but not to guide, but not to aid. They're there to not intervene. Something I learned back when I was studying the angels, it was said that angels can't intervene in our lives because we were gifted by God free will, unless we pray and we ask for their help. And that is when they can come in and guide even more, or maybe intervene spiritually wherever they are, because there's more than just the physical. So whatever dimension, whatever space they are in at the same present time, they are helping you in those spaces that we may not be able to see. Sometimes we can't see it, but may not be able to see or feel, but it still helps us move forward. But that even in those situations, everything that is done still goes back to the choices that we make. because we, at the end of the day, control our lives. We are gifted the ability to reach the highest of heights and the ability to reach the deepest depths. And that's why I'm learning that Earth has everything. Earth is everything. And also, Source, God, is in everything. So, giving us the ability to be as high as we can be in terms of being a guiding light for others, mastering your self. Jesus, Yeshua was that expression, the highest of heights that we have at this time. And the lowest of lows, the deepest of depths. Some like to call it Satan, some like to call it Lucifer. Some just say it's an energy, a low vibration. And regardless of what it looks like, we have the gift and the unique ability to reach either side freely, because that's the gift that God gave. So even if there's things and ways that other people are living that you don't agree with, that's still a part of what God created. And it's up to us to learn how to coexist in that, not necessarily accepting things, because at the end of the day, everything also has consequences. There's laws here. So even if you choose certain things, we've lived so many lifetimes to where we know the consequences of certain events. We know the patterns of things to where if I choose to do this, that this can happen. So it's up to you at the end of the day. If you want to be in spaces you know are bad for you, you're going to maybe be in situations that are bad for you. If you choose to elevate and get out of those spaces and be in somewhere new, then you're also choosing to heighten and elevate and change, transform. But it's up to us again, and it is not up to the angels. It's not even up to, it is God's will. We all have a purpose and a plan that is made for us, but we're also gifted with the ability to not go forth with that plan if we don't want to. But we'll always have that light there to guide us back to it if we ask for it and if we're looking for it. So I think that's very beautiful, very powerful. And also, if you read the Book of Enoch, it talks about the sun and the moon and the times that they're intended to come out. And that's something he's explaining here, is that everything had its time. Not only the sun, not only the moon, not only the seasons, but also when we as a collective, all of us in humanity, need a brighter light to guide us to something different, a master soul comes down here to share that light and to be a beacon, to be an example of where you can strive to be more at that heightened height or more enlightened. And they say that Yeshua is the one at that time to come in to bring that greater light after the Vedas, after the Avesta, after the Tao was brought. People still needed more. And that is why John is the harbinger of purity and living a pure life and being that example, whereas Yeshua, Jesus, became that expression of love, and his ministry was brought as that light. Both of their ministries were brought as a light and a way to live differently than they were at that time. But then he concludes it with saying, that's not it. But there are more lights that will come because we will continue to elevate our consciousness. And the way I like to say, but in the last verse, he was saying, and then at last, a mighty master soul will come to earth to light the way up to the throne of perfect man. We don't even know what our potential is as perfect men and women. And for him to prophesy that, as well as in Revelation, the prophecy of a second coming, or this Christ consciousness, or this end of what we know to be at this time tough. This is one of the toughest times for us as a collective, but we're here in it together, and we're also elevating together. And regardless of if it seems like all is lost or if it seems like nothing will change, there is a light that will come, or there is knowledge, wisdom, consciousness, understanding that will come, and you have the choice to find it, to listen to it, to understand it, to implement it in your own life in order to shift this reality, both individually and collectively. So yeah, let's move on because I'm looking at my time. Okay. But please feel free to go into the comments. I would love to go deeper into these things. Like as a back and forth conversation, I would love that. But yeah, we'll move on. Chapter 15. This is the end of the section 4 as well. So, summary. Death and burial of Elizabeth, Matheno's lessons, the ministry of death, the mission of John, institution of the rite of baptism. Matheno takes John to Egypt and places him in the temple of Saqqara, where he remains 18 years. When John was 12 years old, his mother died, and the neighbors laid her body in a tomb among her kindred in the Hebron burying ground and near to Zachariah's tomb. And John was deeply grieved. He wept. Matheno said, "It is not well to weep because of death. Death is no enemy of man. It is a friend who, when the work of life is done, just cuts the cord that binds the human boat to earth, that it may sail on smoother seas. No language can describe a mother's worth, and yours was tried and true, but she was not called hence until her tasks were done. The calls of death are always for the best, for we are solving problems there as well as here, and one is sure to find himself where he can solve his problems best. It is but selfishness that makes one wish to call again to earth departed souls. Then let your mother rest in peace. Just let her noble life be strength and inspiration unto you. A crisis in your life has come, and you must have a clear conception of the work that you are called to do. The sages of the ages call you Harbinger. The prophets look to you and say, he is Elijah come again. Your mission here is that of Harbinger, for you will go before Messiah's face to pave his way and make the people ready to receive their king. This readiness is purity of heart. None but the pure in heart can recognize the king. To teach men to be pure in heart, you must yourselves be pure in heart and word and deed. In infancy, the vow for you was made, and you became a Nazarite. The razor shall not touch your face nor head, and you shall taste not wine nor fiery drinks. Men need a pattern for their lives. They love to follow, not to lead. The man who stands upon the corners of the paths and points the way, but does not go, is just a pointer, and a block of wood can do the same. The teacher treads the way. On every span of ground he leaves his footprints clearly cut, which all can see and be assured that he, their master, went that way. Men comprehend the inner life by what they see and do. They come to God through ceremonies and forms. And so when you would make men know that sins are washed away by purity in life, a rite symbolic may be introduced. In water, wash the bodies of the people who would turn away from sin and strive for purity in life. This rite of cleansing is a preparation rite, and they who thus are cleansed comprise the church of purity. And you shall say, you men of Israel, hear, reform and wash. Become the sons of purity, and you shall be forgiven. This rite of cleansing and this church are but symbolic of the cleansing of the soul by purity in life, and the kingdom of the soul, which does not come from outward show, but is the church within. Now you may never point the way and tell the multitudes to do what you have never done, but you must go before and show the way. You are to teach that men must wash, so you must lead the way. Your body must be washed, symbolic of the cleansing of the soul. John said, why need I wait? May I not go at once and wash? Matheno said, 'tis well. And then they went down to the Jordan ford and east of Jericho, where the hosts of Israel crossed. When first they entered Canaan, they tarried for a time. Matheno taught the Harbinger, and he explained to him the inner meaning of the cleansing rite and how to wash himself and how to wash the multitude. And in the river Jordan, John was washed. Then they returned unto the wilderness. Now in Engedi's hills, Matheno's work was done, and he and John went down to Egypt. They rested not until they reached the temple of Saqqara in the valley of the Nile. For many years, Matheno was a master in this temple of the brotherhood. And when he told about the life of John and his mission to the sons of men, the Hierophant with joy received the Harbinger, and he was called the brother Nazarite. For 18 years, John lived and wrought within these temple gates, and here he conquered self, became a mastermind, and learned the duties of the Harbinger. Chapter 15. Great. All right. We got about like 5 more minutes, so we'll get into this quickly. So unfortunately, when John was 12, his mother Elizabeth passed. And we know that Elizabeth was a big part in bringing a lot of these mystery teachings to him in order to pave the way for his prophetic life. And Matheno said that when it comes to death, that's something that we will all experience. But death is not something that is bad, nor is it an enemy to humanity, but it's something that shows that there is more to this life. There is more than this life. And he explains that when somebody leaves, they're not taken before their time, but it's for a reason every time. And their purpose for this lifetime, this vessel, this being at this point in time, whatever they were intended to do gets done before their life is taken. And I think this is really powerful because sometimes we can be very upset about the passing of others, even to the point where some people would practice raising of the dead, necromancy, and try to bring these people back into their lives. There's even examples of it in the Bible. And they say that in the Bible that this practice is a sin. And I can understand that because if we are infinite and there are so many there's other places for us to dwell, our spirits to dwell, other than this physical experience, then we have other lessons to learn even after this life. So if we're constantly living here and not moving forward from the lesson that we're supposed to learn, because also sometimes people are taken in order for us that are still here to understand more about life or to understand whatever lesson you are meant to receive through that person, because everybody comes into our life for a reason. But if we're pulling on their energy and pulling on them to be here, and sometimes I even think about that in terms of Yeshua, like we pull on him to still be and help and shine, but there might be a problem that they're intended to solve in the afterlife. There might be some lesson for their soul to grow that may be in the space that we're not also in, because our journeys are different. And that's okay. And it's really great to just reflect on the times that they were here and receive the lessons that we were meant to receive through them being present in our lives. It's a tough thing to grieve others, definitely. But knowing that this is not all that there is very comforting. Some people see butterflies and they feel their grandmother. Some people can just sense or smell people that have passed. And those are real. This person, their essence, their spirit is still there. But their soul is growing, and their lessons and their job and their purpose is expanding, as will yours as well when your time here is finished, whenever that divine time is meant to be. and know that you will not be taken before it is time. I think I spoke a little bit enough on that. But yeah, so he concludes to say that baptism, or the cleansing of the body, is a representation of the cleansing of the soul. And those who participate in this will become parts of the Church of Purity, because they have dedicated their lives to purifying their soul, and also, just like John, living as examples of what purity is in life. And also, I think it's personally, I'm like, well, at this time, were they like bathing every day the way that we are, you know? And maybe not, because he was like, well, why can't I just go now? So to me, it was like, well, is that something that you do often? Because I know people take spiritual baths, or will say affirmations or things in the shower to help cleanse their spirit and to help cleanse their soul from things and energies that are here now, with the intention of starting again and beginning anew every day. That can be a ritual as well, and that cleanses the soul too. But this level is different, because you're not only dedicating to purifying the energies of the past, but you're now dedicating yourself to living like that, moving forward and releasing all of that brought that heaviness into you. And we see that all the time in church. I was baptized technically three times, twice, but the second time I had to do it twice. But yeah, and you feel different. You're dedicating yourself to repentance. You're dedicating yourself to living a different life. And this was John's message, that you are now showing others outwardly that your inner church is changing, and you're working towards just being better for yourself and for others. And he was meant to teach those in Israel of this practice. And after that, he lived in the temples of Egypt for 18 years, where he studied, he learned, and he was trained to be the Harbinger. All right, and that concludes chapter 15. Thank you for being here. I gotta start getting ready. Gotta go finish my coffee. Also, but I hope that you received some insight. Thank you for being here and allowing me the opportunity to share my insight in this space. And I would love to hear anything that you want to share. And even if you're just here to receive, I am so grateful that you're here. And I encourage you to pray about anything that you may disagree with, or anything that you may not fully understand. You will be guided to what you need to know most. And I am just grateful that I can open up this space for you. Have a beautiful rest of your Sunday, and I will see you next week. I'll just to some housekeeping things before I leave. Next month, September, is so busy, especially on the weekends for myself. And then October is my birthday month, so it might also be kind of like hectic, but I am going to do my best to continue to come on here live, or figure out a way to present the video at the same time. But regardless, I definitely try to be here every Sunday, sharing here for less than an hour most of the time. So whether you can catch me live or be here later on, whatever time is best for you, I just want you to know that we will still continue this book, but it's always here for you as well to read and reflect on your own. So thank you again for being here, and I love you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.